Welcome to the Direct Line powered by 10Bet. I'm Nico Gritziodis. Coming up on today's show, we'll have a chat with John Freeman. He's a man that has been involved in horse racing for the last 50 years, starting off as a bloodstock agent, now more recently involved in stallion syndication. He's got a lot of strong views about horse racing, and we'll ask him what they are a bit later on in the show. Coming up in Nico's notebook at the end of the show, we'll talk about the Summer Cup coming up in just about a month's time, about the principal runners for that, what the latest betting is, and also what my thoughts are on who can win the big race, plus a chance to win 2 tickets to the Betway Summer Cup at the end of November. Well, we promised you a special guest here on the Direct Line today, powered by 10Bet, and we've got John Freeman, who is no stranger to anyone that's involved in horse racing here in South Africa, or indeed worldwide. He's a man that is steeped in racing history and has been involved in the industry for a very, very long time. It's always a pleasure when I get to chat to him. It's not too often that we get to chat, John, because these days you're not as mobile as you used to be, but we often used to see you at the sales. Yeah. Let's talk about the last time I interviewed you was in the depths of COVID when we were at a sales ring, and we had a quick interview about how racing you thought would go during COVID. But it's a great pleasure to welcome you on the show. How are you doing? How are you doing health-wise?
I'm fine, thank you. Age takes its toll. It's getting old is not for sissies, Nico. I learned that a long time ago, but it beats the alternative.
but this is a long game for anyone. But for you, you've from an early age, just looking back through your racing history, I mean, your father, I think, was one of the first guys in South Africa to insure a racehorse.
He was the first guy. He had a horse called Greyleg. He was in the insurance business here, and he had a very good steeplechaser called Greyleg. And they offered him a lot of money for Greyleg. And so my dad said, well, no, thank you. But then the horse died. And he said, but why do we insure these things? And he did the first insurance.
And then you sort of accompanied him to sales as well, because he was going to horse sales, and you accompanied him, and you were fascinated by it, even though in your well didn't you for a couple of years you decided it wasn't for you.
I did do it, and anyway, I moved to the Cape. Family issues. My mom and sister and brother-in-law moved down to the Cape with me, and we just started our own business. And I left him in his business, and I started mine, and then I went into horse auctions, but mainly in stallion syndication. I, of course, did buy a lot of horses in my time, but I don't like going to auctions anymore. I value these things too much. Auction is kind of sell by intimidation when it comes to horses.
Just tell me.
You go to an art auction and they whisper, you would like to bid the next R1 million, and you go to an auction and at the horse auction they scream the hell out of you.
John, just tell us about the actual horse itself. Did you learn about the conformation of horses? Did you learn on your own? Did you learn from other people? How did you go about learning about which was the right racehorse to purchase for people that would come as a client to you?
Okay, so I actually did a lot of time as a kid mucking out stables. I worked for Harry Galoon, and I spent a lot of time in Henry Eatwood Yard at Newmarket. In fact, Harry Galoon and I were very close, and Jaime Tucker came there one Sunday morning, and I just sort of been mucking out stables, and Harry and his wife were in the kitchen, and Jaime Tucker came to the yard to look at Philip's boy, and Jaime had a son called Philip Tucker, and he was interested in this horse, and I said, he's a very good horse, and I'd actually ridden one, and so he went to Harry and said he wants to make an offer, and sold the horse, and so Harry Galoon said to me, he has a present for you, and I think he gave me the princely son. I think it was a couple of $100,000. And I told my father about it, and my father was furious because, you're not supposed to be trading. You're not even old enough to receive money payment for things. Anyway, I learned a lot from Sidney Laird, called him Uncle Bear. The one thing he taught me was that if you're looking at a horse, the first thing you have to look at is if you watch a horse walk out of a stable, and you watch him from his nose across his ears and down his neck, and you get to the wither, and you don't like what you've seen, don't look any further.
Really?
And my mate Jack Mitchell, he was a very good picker of horse. Jack always used to say, colts run with the heads. So if you don't see what you like in that first impression, I'm a little bit more technical because I was taught by a lot of the old ways that you have to watch a horse track walking towards you, the way it puts his feet down, up, roll them, and the shape, obviously. So yeah, I do like particular type horse, and I've been quite successful in buying that particular type.
And then obviously I know, because you spend hours on it, is the pedigree. The pedigree, even though the horse may appear to be a cracking specimen, ultimately you've got to dig down into the pedigree.
And Nico, it's nowadays we've got AI and all sorts of electronic devices and computers that help us remember pedigree. But when I was a kid, we used to have these split pedigree books, this flat thing, and you write the size pedigree on the top and the dad pedigree at the bottom, and you flap through until the two looked together, and you knew that fitted that. And I had a lot of, what I miss in this game when I was a kid, as the Thoroughbred Breeders Association used to hold symposium. And we had people like Epi Nelson and George Ford that giving us lectures on confirmation. Would go to a hotel and spend the whole week at a hotel and have these symposium.
Was it well attended?
Youngsters today don't have that.
Was it well attended?
Sorry?
Was it well attended?
Very well attended.
Yeah.
Extremely well. Yeah. I mean, I remember distinctly that Kimberley Hotel is like the big hole in Kimberley. It's a round hotel. Southern Sun Hotel and the new hotel. We had the whole hotel. And they came from far and wide to attend those lectures, and they were very informative. That seemed to have stopped. More before COVID, the Cape Breeders did a very good, they got Leo Tsatsaronis to come out from G1 Gold Mine, and he gave us a little bit of a run through his program. But, I now run the pedigrees of great horses that I breed for clients. Alec and Gillian Foster being most probably foremost. And you look at a horse like Belgarian and won the Durban July, and you wonder, and people would wonder, why did you do the pedigree? And you put it onto the new program, and it comes up with 5-star treatment. So we knew what we were doing because we knew our mare, but it was also a physical thing. You didn't just choose the horse on what you knew on paper, because that mare couldn't go to that stallion for this confirmation. That's the sort of thing that you got to make a horse look like them.
You were mentioning earlier you don't go often to sales anymore. Your main thrust of your business now is Freeman Stallions. You syndicate stallions, you eye out stallions, you pick which stallions are going to make it. I suppose along the way there's been a bit of hit and miss, but more hit than miss locally for you, because you've always believed in the local champion to use them as the stallions rather than import them.
I was the BBA representative for Africa, British Bloodstock Hilton. So I used to go to Newmarket and look at, we were offered horses that had absolutely no form, but they were son of Northern Dancer, half brother to something that's sturdy. And said, there's a stallion for them. And that's what they thought South Africa should have as potential stallion. And I thought, no, went to the Australian sale in the early 1990s, I think it was 1991. On the back of the first Australian $1 million yearling, they went to England and they stocked up. And then, of course, they had the advantage of Shetlandsdale, which we couldn't do because we're African horses from export protocol problem. But I've decided, you've got a horse like Goldmark. He's clearly, he was trained by Johan de Bruin in a mealie field off the back of a motorbike. Johan used to tell me a story about how he said, I clocked this horse at 50 kilometers an hour in a mealie field. And I thought, that's something. And we won 3 Group 1 races. And so we bought him. And I've syndicated him for a stud farm in Natal. Stone, I think. And Hans Roos was the owner at the time. And he sold up. And we moved the horse. And the horse wasn't getting particularly well. So we moved the horse to Cape Town, to Wilfred Costa. And I think, I had syndicated Bottom on for the Orphids in Bordwood Stokes last 80, no, 83 or something. But Goldmark was a trigger here because he was very popularly supported. And then we got goalkeeper because obviously just left Zimbabwe and started to do goalkeeper there. And then Laurie Jaffe and G. Jaffe were at Wilfred Costa Farm one day. They were looking at Goldmark. And he said, I've got a horse on Grand Protects farm called Jarrah. And why don't you do something with that for me? And it just took off. Then followed Dynasty and Captain L and Trippy and Give Me the Green Light, Master of My Fate, and Now One World. And at an AGM, at one of our Australian AGMs this year, one of our regular shareholders said, hey, it seems to me that good science find John Freeman. I said, well, I'm very happy to take that.
Yeah, but look, it comes from also just having the right credentials to be able to pick them and also to syndicate them in order to get the buyers on board. I mean, you are a pro, if I can call it that, at advertising the fact that these stallions are going to make it and come on board and buy your share. Now, there's only a specific number of shares. I heard this actually from one of the syndicate holders the other day. You sell, there's a specific number that you sell shares of. Why is it that number? What is the number?
40.
It's 40. Why?
Well, it comes from the old days. When I was a kid, if you covered 40 mares, that was a full book. It was just a question of logistics.
Okay.
And so that was sort of like the mark. And many sires have made it without covering near 40 mares. I mean, Eliodor got 14 foals in his first crop, which included Model Man. And I think from 16 foals, got 14 winners, a champion, and 7 stakes winners or something. So that set him up. Yeah, you don't have to have full books of mares if you've got what it takes. In fact, my mate Wilfred Costa, latent friend Wilfred Costa, one star, used to say to me, John, I will never support a first season sire that's got a book of more than 80 mares. Because scientists will tell you that mares can't be nearly pregnant, they are or they aren't. But Wilfred quite rightly pointed out, and so did Tessio, that if a stallion is not well, or he gets under stress during the season, his semen will not be of the best quality. Now, this is a big debate you can have. I know that people overseas screw it in because it's impossible to cover 390 mares in season. It's physically impossible for a stallion to cover. But what they do is they do a little bit of science. And I don't like that idea, but numbers, nowadays it's a numbers game. I personally, One World will cover 125 mares this year. That's a big book.
Yeah,
and he's probably the most in-demand stallion.
Yeah. So let's dwell on him a little bit. What would his first season have? How many would he have covered in his first season then? Because we want to talk about that first season because it's very special, not only to you, but also to the whole of South Africa. It means a hell of a lot. So what would his first book have entailed? How many mares did he cover in his first book?
One World covered 118 mares, or 118 mares in his first season. I don't have that yet. Yeah, my memory serves me correct. In fact, he covered between 116, 118. I think those were his first 3 crops.
Right. So he was in demand, and obviously the choice of him as a stallion was well supported by everyone. He was a special-looking horse, and he was a hell of a racehorse on the track.
He was. He's currently the most valuable stallion in South Africa. I know that because of the shares that have been sold. The shares get traded all the time for various reasons. And he was, he just, what makes him so special is that he's broken 3 records. That the first was his father's record for first 2-year-old winners. The record was 22 that Captain Al set all those years ago. So he broke that with 23. Then he smashed another record, reaching 31st crop 2-year-old winners that no sire had ever come to. And last week he broke Jet Master's 19-year-old record of number of first crop winners across all ages. He got 60 and counting because there's some more that can come out. I don't think it's going to. I don't think that record will be broken very soon. Although some side in South Africa, they're covering 170 odd mares, and what can I tell you? If I don't know.
Is he? So he's still a very in-demand stallion at the sales ground, is he? When people go, they want to see the One Worlds.
Yeah. Well, the mares that he covered last year, once he was proven after one stripe and all out for six and whatever, World of Ellis and so on started showing him off. Quality of mares that he got last year, the number of Group 1 down to Group 1 winners and Group 1 winners themselves that he covered was exponential to anything that he covered before. So all new sires started from a low base. I mean, Captain really had to pull himself out of the gutter. I mean, they brought Polo Pony back in cheap breeding when Captain L was first at stud to get him approval. And look what he did. I mean, he's a serial champion sire, He was a legend, Captain L. And so you have, in One World, you've got a son of Captain L, who's a proven sire of sires. I mean, you can't write something like William Longshaw leading captain of all, but, and now you've got Sandringham son that's out of Captain L there. And Comet Zinter, Captain L there. Captain L making a big mark on breeding in it, which I love. I mean, yes, John Coffey, I know he bred, John Coffey is like a good breeder. Not only did he breed Vercingetorix, but he also bred One World. And rightfully, you should say One World should have been there. But for various reasons and locality, Drakensberg was the right place to be, and it's moved to Ginkgo.
John, I want to move on to the export protocols now that they've been relaxed, and the fact that we're seeing some of our local South African horses racing elsewhere in the world. You must be chuffed about that. You must be chuffed to be seeing our horses racing internationally again.
Yes and no, and I'll tell you why I say that. Firstly, if we sell all our best horses overseas, what are we racing there? We've got a very small breeding industry. Around the area of 2,000 mares now, that's less than 10% of what Australia had. Our stallion pool has dropped from 100 in 5 years to 50. So we can't really afford to do that. It's nice for the breeder to get, one stripe, I believe, sold for something like 28 million rand.
Yeah,
it's nice when you can sell a horse that was 100,000 rand, 100,000 rand purchase at the August 2-year-old sale, Bloodstock South Africa, Germiston, you get 28 million rand, having earned 3 million rand on top of it. What a nice turnaround, 30 million rand from 100,000. I think the only game in the world you can do that in. I'm as an aside, sorry, I'm digressing, but let me just tell you this. We paid 500,000 rand for Dynasty. And after he won the Durban July, Herman Brown and Neil Smith were in Dubai, and they were in a car, and they said John Newsom was very ill with the principal of Fieldsbury Nelson. We turned down 50 million rand for Dynasty. Do you know that was, the rand was 10 to the dollar?
Yeah.
It boggles my mind. And that was what, 20 years ago?
Yeah.
You think about it.
Yeah.
Let's go. People ask me, is racing really survive? People, we are so passionate about it. We love what we do so much that the idea that racing would cease, even during, the pre-COVID financial crash, everybody said, racing is going to go. Nonsense. Racing is man's finest genetic thoroughbred, it's man's finest genetic achievement. Racing, the thoroughbred started at 300-something years ago. And there was this pedigree expert in the early days who said, the second hand of the clock separates the best from the worst. And that epitomizes what we're all about. It's an incredible game.
It's hard to explain to people, even in the depths of despair in economic times when things aren't going well. And I remember Professor Joffe was saying this the one day he attended a sale locally, the guy from Investec, and he went to a sale, Brian Joffe, and he said he can't understand how people are buying these horses for hundreds of thousands of rands, and yet the economy is so bad. And case in point is now these last couple of years, the sales prices don't tell you the real truth about what's going on, what's happening. What happens?
It's a shortage. We are short of horses. The export market, Mauritius has opened up again, so that I believe they're taking hundreds of horses a meter. And of course, plane loads of horses going to England, America. Hong Kong come here and buy some nice horses all the time. The market needs that foreign investment because buying stallions is such an expensive thing. Buying proper movement nowadays is very expensive. So if breeders don't get top prices for horses, they can't stay in the business. They can't keep ahead of the game. I mean, as it is in South Africa, because the low value of our currency, we can't compete with people like Australia, let alone America and England to buy £1 million stallions. I mean, £1 million doesn't buy you a nice stallion anymore. That's a fact. And that is why you touched on earlier about the fact that I like to support local champions. In the early days when I went to Australia, I was telling you about my experience there. The sale finished in the early hours of the morning. And Reg Inglis was personally looking after it, the landlord of us that flew over there. He called the taxi cab, and they said they had no drivers. So the owner of the taxi cab company was a Mr. Friedman, and he came to pick us up in his Mercedes Benz. It was Charles Laird, myself, Alec Laird, and I forget who else was on the car with us. And he said, "What are you all here to buy, mate?" And we said, "Well, we were here to buy Last Tycoons and Old Grand Seigneurs because they're Southern Hemisphere time horses, and we don't have to go to England to buy them." And he said, "Nah, mate, you want to come here and buy Black Shingley's, Mascays and Maraudings. We know how they raced because they stood for our purpose. You go home and breed with your champions." And I got that message. And I have to do this from Stephen, Dynasty Captain L. Look at Jetmaster, not mine, but I mean, local champions deserve to be supported.
Recipe, John. It's proven to be a winning recipe over time, hasn't it?
And now won worlds.
Yeah, John,
and
we've got to wrap it up. We've got to wrap it up. We're running out of time, but I want to end off by speaking to you about what racing promises for the public out there that are following it in the years to come, or your look into the future or your crystal ball. We are so thankful to those people that have kept racing alive post-COVID, and that have put a generous amount of money in to keep us afloat and keep us going. But it all depends on the support that horse racing gets, and of course people that follow it. I know that over the generations that you've tried to widen your net to appeal to the younger crowd, but isn't that ultimately what we need to appeal to the younger South African population? And there needs to be an education, some sort of mission from the racing operators to educate people about how they can enjoy racing and how it can go forward. What is your projection for the way forward?
Nico, I want to tell you, racing and gambling on racing, the sport, is such a mind game. It's such a wonderful mind game. If you think about the idea of a one-armed bandit in a casino, pull a lever and expect that you're going to win money and say, well, there's no science in that. In racing, I don't have to tell you, you've got, first of all, the horse. You can look at it in the parade and say, wow, he looks well. Then you can go and say the trainer's in form, the jockey's in form, or not in form. It's over the right distance because it's proven. The course going is good. It's drawn well. There are so many factors that come into this thing, and that is why it's, for people who've got a brain, it's a serious challenge. And I think that's the story we need to sell the youngsters who could be attracted by having a few animals is exciting. And the money will go. Anyway.
Yeah, we just lost you towards the tail end there, but I get your point there. Basically, John is saying this is an intelligent bet. Horse racing is more of an intelligent bet than betting on other things, and to use your money wisely. It takes a while to understand how it all works, but ultimately the long-term goal is...
Let me just put a final comment to that, if you don't mind. Casinos were given a much better deal than racing. The Nat government treated racing appallingly. I mean, Mornington Racecourse was sold to pay tax because you operated at 113%. You were taxed 113% of your income. You can't make a business like that. And I don't think the current government are any more lenient on racing, but they need to get a wake up because it's a very good employer and it's very good for tourism and it's very good for international visitors. And so they should give us that respect. And all the money they make through the export of horses, I mean, nowadays, it's tax. It's all tax. It's all money for the coffers.
If you had to ask the racing population here in South Africa, they'd say John Freeman for president. Maybe you can make a difference, John. Maybe you should go into politics in the twilight years of your career. John Freeman, absolute pleasure seeing you, chatting to you, catching up with you. Continue all that excellent work that you do, and we'll catch up again soon. But thanks very much for appearing on my podcast, The Direct Line, powered by 10Bet today.
It's a pleasure, Nico. Horses with my reason to get up in the morning. I'm sure it's yours too. Keep it up.
Absolutely. Good note. Cheers, John.
Yes, bye-bye.
Well, the Summer Cup is due to be run in Johannesburg at the end of November. And on Nico's notebook on the section today, we'll talk about the latest betting for the big race. 6 million rand in the big race coming up in a few weeks' time. Everyone wants to try and find who the winner will ultimately be. And certainly we'll be focusing on that in the next few weeks leading up to the event. There was a very good win by the Equator, who won in a graduation plate over 1,600 meters just in the last week or so. And he is actually shortened in to be favorite now at 7-2. I think it's a very skinny price. He's obviously an imported horse. He was imported to South Africa to commence stallion duties. But prior to that, they want to win a big race with him. He's certainly extremely well bred. He's been very, very impressive in his latest two wins at Turffontein. But it is a big step up to run in the race against some of the country's best horses over 2,000 meters. Confederate is at 6-1. He is the second favorite from the Fabian Habib stable. He won his last start, and he is a very, very good horse too. King Pals won the Gold Cup. He's quoted at 8-1. And then we go to last year's winner, Atticus Finch, who's at 10-1, along with Madison Valley, who ran a very good race in last year's equivalent. 12-1 is a very interesting run, and a horse that is really very high up on my shortlist, and that is a horse called Legend of Arthur. He was recently gelded, and he ran in a sprint up. He's going to run in the Victory Moon Stakes, which comes up this coming weekend, and then he'll take on the Summer Cup field. And I think he's a lively chance. 12-1 might be a bit short in the market, but I think he's not without a prayer. We haven't seen the filly Fiery Pegasus for a long while. We wait to see her seasonal debut. She's in the market at 16-1, but she's an unknown quantity because we don't know whether or not she will run or where she's going to come out and make her debut. World of Alice had a very good win over a distance short of her best the other day. Spumante Dolce and Olivia's Way are part of the female brigade that will certainly give a good account of themselves in the race. And then there's a horse called On My Honor, who was being targeted for this race by trainer Glenn Kotson. It's all in the melting pot, but we'll know certainly as the weeks progress who we're going to choose. And we'll get some experts on this particular show to tell us what their thought process is about who might win the 2,000 meter Johannesburg pinnacle of races here, the Summer Cup. Well, there's a chance to win 2 tickets to Turffontein for the Summer Cup at the end of the month, and all you have to do is follow the prompts on the screen, and hopefully by entering you could be a winner to come to Johannesburg's biggest race, the Summer Cup, at the end of November. That wraps it up for another edition of The Direct Line, powered by 10Bet. I'm Nico Kratzelis, with the hope that you'll be joining us next time for our next episode. Bye-bye.